So today we're in the Philippines. I'm in an elevation of like, I don't know, 400 meters. Very, very humid. Very warm, very humid. Not as hot as in Manila, which is like an hour north because we got some elevation. But these forests are mostly planted with mahogany, Switenia, which is in Meliaceae, the mahogany family. Very invasive here. Kind of a bummer, but they didn't know any better. That, we were doing the same thing with eucalyptus in California. And they've since revised their forestry practices. But there's a lot of cool stuff in this forest. There's still a lot of cool natives. And one of the coolest ones is right behind me. This is a plant known as the jade vine Strongylodon macrobotrys. There's quite a few species in the genus Strongylodon. It's in the pea family Fabaceae. And it's a liana that's normally like, 30 meters up in the canopy because they're pollinated by bats. So we're really lucky to be able to get an up-close view with them. You can see there's one with unopened flowers right there. Let's take a look at it. So, like many members of the bean family, this has trifoliate leaves. You can see right there, it's a creeping vine. This liana gets very high up, like I said earlier. You can see these are not open yet. It's got this beautiful pendant inflorescence with these violet pedicels coming off that main peduncle, and these flowers with the very strong keel petal that looks like a little hook have not opened yet. You can see the calyx is white, just the fused sepals. But these up here are open and going off, and it gives us a great chance to look at these flowers again, bat pollinated. And so they've got a kind of an ingenious mechanism to limit access by insects and moths, other animals, and ensure that their main pollinator, the pollinator that they co-evolved with, that is bats in this case, are going to be the things that have the easiest time getting at the nectar inside and at the pollen. So again, pea family flower, you got the banner petal in the back, you got the two wing petals, and you got the keel petal in which the stamens and the style are enclosed. And of course the ovary is in there. You can just see the ovary poking out, that little green thing. But so a bat will be going in there to get nectar, and as it does so, it causes this keel petal to come up, and you can see, look at the end of that, you can see the pollen coming out of it. As a bat presses its face into that, it causes the keel petal to come up and dust the back of the bat's head and its back with pollen. And then if the bat has pollen from another flower, the style and stigma are in there as well, and the stigma will of course get dusted with pollen and the plant will be pollinated. And so that's how it reproduces. It relies on bats for pollination. And you can imagine on a moonlit night, even just the littlest hint of moonlight, this is such a bright colored and attractive looking flower. Bats will have no problem at all seeing this when they're flying around up there. And it probably emits a scent as well, but it doesn't really smell like anything right now. But just an absolutely, probably one of the showiest flowers in existence that I know of. Just unparalleled in its floral beauty and its color. Real fucking stunner, man. Look at it. And of course we got Dendrocnide too, relative to Gimpy, Urticaceae the family, tiny stinging hairs, so don't touch it. But the hairs are microscopic too, you can't even really see them. Floral structure, of course, though, is in keeping with members of the nettle family, Urticaceae. I'm almost kind of curious, like, does it really hurt? What if I put some on my taint? And I got a big ass, it probably wouldn't last that long. It stings and then it itches, reportedly. Look at this tiny flower. All escaped horticultural atrocities. All all from garden collections. Just basically New World Acanthaceae. Oh, it's so pretty. So this is a really interesting one. It's in the order Zingiberales, the ginger order. It's got pennaparallel venation, so instead of just parallel veins up and down the leaves, the veins instead are parallel, but they split off from the midrib and then hit the margin of the leaf. But the flower is really showy. I wonder what's hitting this, moths or bats or both. You can see it's arranged in these long tubes that come off this central spike, and then you've got a single stamen, and I guess those white petals, like many members of Zingiberales, those white petals are just petaloid staminodes. Marantaceae is the family here. Really ornate flower structure though. I guess this is used a lot for making baskets. No scent to it right now, but if it's a moth or bat pollinated flower, it may not start emitting scent until evening anyway. Conserving its resources. Yeah, damn, look, that is an ornate structure, man. Again, with just that, it looks just like a single stamen and then a style poking out of it. Look at these bulbous joints at the where it branches. So it branches above the branches above the these bulbous joints where it branches as well. Fibrous and semi-woody. It looks almost woody. It's just dead tissue. There it is. It's got those other bracts too. And it's a really interesting plant. I mean, just knowing the ginger order too, and then seeing this thing, it's fucking wild. Variations, all about variations on a theme. There you go. There's the fruit. Good old massive Angiopteris. It's like a 30-foot spread. Ooh, it's like a semi-coalescent too. It is coalescent. Those auricles again that just fall off and then can start their own little plantlets. Nice display of the sori right there, the sporangia. Now look at it, one of the few hundred species of ficus in the Philippines. Again, with the buttress trunks, a convergent trait among plants, among trees that grow in tropical forests, with high rainfall and sometimes unstable soils. Damn, man, I can't get over the size of some of these palms. These orenga palms. Orenga pinnatum. So I believe are edible. They make an ice cream called Halo from it. Just fucking massive beast. We got a musa right there too. I don't know if that's the you know, status quo one or just the species. Ooh, nice nice palm frond emerging. It's a different species though. It's not that orenga. Those orengas are something else, man. Beautiful genus. So we got climate aroids, and then we got cauliflorous figs. Quite a few species are cauliflorous. I wonder how those taste. God, there's so many species of ficus here. A couple hundred, I think. Epiphytes on everything. God, just the forest composition is so different from the New World tropics, Western Hemisphere tropics. There's just no bromeliads. It's so wild to look up in a tree like that and not see any bromeliads. But a shit ton of aroids. Oh yeah, that's another thing. You get all these old school Jeeps here. Like I think it's a very old model, but they really, you know, they really doll them up. Get these like mini buses. There you go, to look like that. See that? It's a lot. Somebody put a lot of work into that. That thing looks great. I said, wow. Ooh, and then we got the terrestrial aroid, not an epiphytic one. We got Amorphophallus. We got an Amorphophallus. This is all one leaf. There's no abscission layer between any of them. There's no place for the leaves to fall off. So that there's no like branching structure. You know, normally you have a branch and then leaves on it. This is all the same leaf. And look at that beautiful modeling, those beautiful maculations on a stem right there. All of this whole leaf, of course, attached to a single corm in the ground, and then when it flowers, it's just cooking up carbohydrates. Now when it flowers, it sends up a flower that smells like absolute hell. It has a spathe and spadix, which is typical aroid flower morphology, and is pollinated, I believe, by either carrion beetles or flies. I don't know. It's something that likes shit that smells bad, because it smells fucking terrible. It's Amorphophallus longispathaceus. See, there's another one dying back to the corm for now. I wonder what actually triggers their flowering. I guess just whenever they cook up enough carbs. Got a strobilanthus right there. Acanthaceae. There we go. This is an interesting member of Anacardiaceae. Semacarpus longifolius. You can see why it gets the name. It's about a meter long leaf. Sumac family. You can see it's got a bunch of galls on it as well. And then there it is. What a bizarre habit, especially for a member of Anacardiaceae. You can see cauliflorous as well, which is another convergent trait among a lot of plants in the tropics. And I think some of these contain urushiol. Hopefully not this one, because I'm allergic. But you know, it's a dried leaf, so maybe it won't be that bad. You know, get a bad ass rash for botany. It wouldn't be the first time. Absolutely massive bamboo. This is Gigantochloa. You can see how large that gets. That's about 10 inches across right there. Hollow stems and about I'd say it's like 70 feet tall. 25 meters tall about. Oh, the cicadas just suddenly picked up. It was quiet and they all just decided to start singing at once. Massive arenga. Here is a species of Sertandra, which is in the African violet family, Meliaceae. You can see those flowers. Ooh, really ornate calyx. Oh yeah, look at those. Striations on the corollas, by the bilateral symmetrical corollas, and then leaves like an oak. That's some nice mimicry. And there's Ficus Marantaceae doing what it does with those flagelliform peduncles just covered in what are actually kind of delicious figs. Actually, those may not be ready yet. But they are tasty when they are ready. Elatostemma for days. Elatostemma is a big genus in the nettle family Urticaceae. You can see the axillary flowers. A lot of them, I think all of them are wind pollinated. Elatostemma, I think that means actually explosive stamen, because the stamens shoot pollen onto air currents. That's how they get pollinated. Damn, look at that alocasia. Oh, is that Zabrina? Again with the mottling. The mottling on the stems, that's a lovely aroid. So we're up at like 2,000 feet now. It's cooled off a little bit, but the humidity is just killing me. I'm just soaked. But you can see we got a Monocollis pandanus right there. Unbranching, just a single stem, and then you've got all those prop roots at the base. It's probably about 40 feet, 30 or 40 feet tall, 10 meters. Ooh, we got a rattan, we got a climbing palm. Everyone's favorite climbing palm with needle-like projections on the stems and also sometimes on the leaves. Calamus, as the genus is known, has these whip-like tails at the ends of the these leaflets that, you know, to help it climb, and they really cling onto you. They'll take your hat off and shit when you're walking through them. Really brutal. But even more interesting, and a highlight of this episode, we got one of the most infamous holoparasitic plants, endoparasitic plants in the world. This is the genus Rafflesia. There's about 30 to 40 species, and this one, Rafflesia lagascae. So you see they put a fence up around it. They put some nice signage. What the shit. And these are just buds. The flowers aren't open yet. There's actually, that right there is a flower bud, and I guess that should be opening next year. So that's next year's flower bud, that brown thing that looks like a gall. These should be opening in the next week. But there's actually some open flowers up here. It's actually a pretty densely populated area, this whole region. But this little forest park, as it's called, is preserved. You can see there's some Rafflesias over there, and here is the host tetrastigma, which is in the grape family Vitaceae. Let's go check out this flower though. So this is Rafflesia lagascae, and it just opened, and oh, you can see there's a, what is that, a fly just going to town on it. Oh yeah. The thing stinks, but you really gotta, you gotta sniff it. You gotta really put your nose up in it. So this plant lives entirely inside its host plant, its host, the tetrastigma, and only comes out the flower. There's obviously no leaves, no stems, nothing. That's the disc. And the flowers are unisexual, so they're either male or female. I believe this is a male, but you can see it's got that disc-like structure, and then under that there's a ring of anthers, either a ring of anthers or a ring of stigmas. Ooh, you can see those little projections on that disc actually have hairs on them. It does smell pretty foul. It's about the size of, maybe about the size of a tea saucer. There's some other ones up there. There you go. There's some really nice ones. Oh yeah, look. That one's a little post. God, it really does. It smells like a cross between dog shit and rotting meat. It's a very pleasant smell, but it gets the job done. Again, 30 to 40 species. All, I think, Borneo, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines. Philippines has quite a bit of diversity. And there's no, but they don't get to mainland Asia at all. These are flower buds for next year. growing on the tetrastigma. And there's actually I guess there's reports of horizontal gene transfer in the Rafflesia. So Rafflesia, over the however many millions of years of its evolutionary past, has actually incorporated bits of its host plant's genome into its own genome, probably to help it evade the defense mechanisms of the host, of the tetrastigma, which is this vine, this liana that goes way up into the canopy. Oh yeah, there you go. You could see that disc has withered and the anthers are revealed. Again, anthers and stigma both occur in a ring. You can see these guys. Look at how massive those buds are. I can't get over it. They look like candied yams. They certainly don't smell like it though. Ooh, look at the bracts on that perianth down there. Look at that. Yeah, the flies are really loving this. Yeah, the horizontal gene transfer thing with this species with its genus is really weird. But it turns out a lot of hollow parasites, obligate parasites, do that. So it's not that weird, but it's still pretty interesting. You know, by what method did they do it? And also, why are there so many plants, specifically in the Old World tropics, as opposed to the New World tropics, that mimic the smell of rotting meat and rely on fly pollination? Why is it more prominent in the Old World tropics than the New? God damn, that thing is really filling up with flies. I wonder what fly species that is. The cicadas have really chilled out. Anyway, that's all I got. Have a good day. Go fuck yourself. Bye. You can see the cicadas have died down a little bit. Or it's just a different species. They kind of sound like one of those, you know, when one of those old cathode ray televisions was on, but like the screen was black, but it was still making it, like emitting that high-pitched noise. It's kind of what it sounds like.